Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today is a game from round one of the Grenke Chess Classic between Grandmaster Fabiano Caruana and GM Magnus Carlsen. Now, let the cat out of the bag right away. This game did end in a draw, but I just wanted to show you the game so that I can discuss the match that is going to be taking place later on this year for the World Chess Championship. As you all know, Fabiano Caruana had a fantastic result in the candidates, which qualified him to challenge GM Magnus Carlsen. And what I found interesting about this game being so soon after the candidates was how would each player approach the game and if there would be a victor in the game. And I think this game provided some answers. I think already the psychological games being played. For example, uh, opening wise, we know that Caruana is a specialist. He's one of those uh, players that prepares openings very deeply and can be considered an opening theoretician. Whereas Magnus, not that he doesn't know his openings, of course, he's world champion, but Magnus relies more on a positional approach. He usually steers for certain type of pawn structures and endings whereby uh, he can take advantage of his vast knowledge in said end games and structures, and usually will grind down his opponent. Uh, Magnus is known for having great stamina, and we know that in the past Magnus has won many positions that have seen drawn. Also, I'm reminded that Magnus also is a very tenacious defender. I think about his position that he held against Hikaru Nakamura, where he was pretty much dead lost, and he did it 2 times, where he basically swindled Nakamura out of victories. In this game, we see the King's Indian defense by Magnus Carlsen, not something that he typically plays. So, is Magnus hiding preparation, or is he just giving Caruana a different look? Because my view is that Carlsen will take the Bobby Fischer strategy in 1972 at Reykjavik against Spassky, whereby he will be switching around in the openings, just basically playing for different structures in middle games and endings rather than trying to adopt a specific opening philosophy. For instance, playing the Berlin Wall, or playing the Petrov as Caruana did in the candidates. I see Magnus Carlsen playing different types of openings. You might see the King's Indian, then he might play Grunfeld, Nimzo Indian. I see him jumping around. I see Carlsen being much more universal in this aspect, and actually I consider it an advantage that he has over many chess players, that he can diversify his openings. So here we see the King's Indian employed. Now Caruana plays knight f3 here, and he stays away from any mainline confrontation, which I found very interesting. He plays e3. Matter of fact, this is a setup that if one plays the collar system, they will often end up in this setup when somebody plays the King's Indian. For example, let's say if you play the Kali system, right? The Kala system, and you want to play this, this setup, castle, knight here, c3, etc. Sometimes you put the pawn on b3, bishop b2, right? But King's Indian is usually a good antidote to such systems because this bishop is then blunted right here by this g6 pawn. So it's been known for a very long time that this fianchetto is too strong and is a great antidote to these type of structures. So usually what players will do that play the Kali, they will transpose into some type of Queen's Gambit type scenario. Of course, black is equal, but it's a game. So going back here, we see this is kind of what Caruana does by transposition. He plays this innocuous looking system, and for all we know, he can already be just making sure that he doesn't give any information to Magnus whatsoever, uh, as far as tendencies, leaning towards certain openings, etc. And I think that it's going to be very interesting to see what Caruana plays for the rest of this tournament, because I just think that he is going to be uh, playing like this, basically, just getting a position. His results might suffer somewhat, but I believe that he's going to try to avoid the opening, his opening preparation that he might have for Carlsen. Now for Carlsen on his side, I think Carlsen is just going to play whatever he wants to play. I believe he is that comfortable. All right. I sort of see things going in the line of the Caruana Carlsen Karyakin match, where Carlsen will just kind of be playing whatever. If you notice, he played the Trompowsky and he had a good position too, although he didn't convert. But he'll just be playing whatever he wants to play and basically just outplaying his opponents. Now, I believe Caruana has increased his playing strength since the last candidates match, where he almost had a chance to play Magnus. And it'll be very interesting. At this point, I am favoring Caruana, but that's more of a personal bias than anything, because we know Magnus has a better record. But it's not too bad. It's 9 wins to 5, I believe, with a string of draws. So anyway, so you have this game, this King's Indian type game. D5 is played, knight b4, and White's only plan really here is kind of castle and then just expand on the queen side and try to make some weaknesses over here. Right, White can't be too ambitious in this position with the pawn on e3. Okay. Right, d4, e5. Right, attacking this strong point. Takes on passant. And now Black has already fully equalized here. Yes, this pawn theoretically, yes, on paper it's a little weak, but can White really do anything? No. These two pawns are a great asset in the center. And what you have is almost like a Dutch defense for Black, except that his control over e4 is lacking a little bit due to the absence of the f pawn. So if White wants to at the right time, he can play e4, and Caruana winds up doing this at some time. So knight b3 after e5. The downside, of course, is this square is giving up. So Carlsen will have to play moves like bishop e6, c6 at some point, and to keep an eye on the d5 square. But of course, he's foreseen, these needs in the position. There it is, c6, and now e4 from Caruana. So now e4 is played. This frees the bishop to go somewhere nice on this diagonal. Perhaps e3, perhaps g5 if needed. And also e4 helps to fix this pawn on d6, where White in a fantasy world hopes to be able to build up and win this pawn. Knight c7, okay, because we know the knight does not belong here, so the knight comes back to c7 with influence on d5, right, and can even assist this break at some point, and then in some cases go to e6 and then end up on these dark squares. F4 by Caruana. This is one of the breaks in the position. The other break in the position is the break at b5, but as you can see, with Caruana having his knight blocking this pawn, it will take a little bit more time to engineer this break. Okay, this knight would have to be moved somewhere, then b4, b5 would have to be played. So f4, easier to make this break. Of course, this gives Black chances also in the position. Knight e6, and Caruana pushes with f5, and the knight comes in to d4. These are always common themes in the King's Indian, whereby it looks like black is giving up a pawn, but the unfortunate piece ending up on d4 for white is then hit like a laser beam from the dark square bishop. This is why Caruana opts to play bishop e3, putting more pressure on d4 instead of just trying to win the pawn straight away. So for instance, knight d4, knight takes d4, e takes d4, queen d4 can be met by knight g4 with this discovered attack on the queen. And again, this is common King's Indian 101 basically. And say queen d3, and then move like that is playable. Back to the game. So Caruana plays what most of us would play, bishop e3. And now Carlsen gets the bishop here. Takes. And sacrifices a pawn. Of course, this pawn is going to fall, but the most important thing is the mobile center. Carlsen gets rid of the weakness on d6. And now he has a very strong center. Takes. Takes. There's the build up. Of course, this is not really a threat to white, as this rook is eyeing the queen. Bishop g5. Queen b6. So we have this threat here. And this discovery against the king with check is threatened. Good move by Magnus. And this allows, again, the dynamic play, which is one of the features of modern chess. This dynamic play allows black to get away with having these, quote unquote, if you will, positional weaknesses. For instance, these isolated pawns in the center of the board. I won't call them isolated pawns, but a pawn island in the center of the board. Okay? Having dynamic chances will offset the positional weakness. Rook to f7. If king h8, this is also possible. And to me, it's more of a natural move. And perhaps knight a4, for example. Hitting the queen, and then let's say queen c6. Alright, so queen c4, the rook was moved. f7, again, not a bad move. There it is, knight a4 anyway. Queen c7, so now we see the idea is if queen takes queen, just simply rook takes, and now the rook is placed on the c file. Queen takes, rook takes, knight ac5. Okay, so let's just take a quick assessment of this position. Black is slightly better here, and that's just because of these two dangerous passed pawns in the middle of the board. There's really nothing to stop them. The only thing that can stop them is the commitment of the white pieces by placing pressure, for instance, on d4, which keeps this pawn from advancing, etc., etc. But as black moves and pushes these pieces away, for instance, moves like b6 or a5, a4, for instance, taking over these squares and pushing these harassers away, these pawns will be able to advance, and as they move up the board will become more and more powerful. White, if we look at the white perspective, white has, all of the positional trumps. This is Caruana style, to the T. Great positional chess, pawn structures, beautiful, right? Knights on the perfect squares, rooks are well placed. I mean, it's hard to argue against it, right? So Caruana has more of the static advantages. Of course, the material is equal. Caruana has more of the static advantages, like I like to call on paper advantages. However, Carlsen has the dynamic advantages. For instance, he has this, again, they're fighting over these central squares, but soon Carlsen will be able to take over full control of the center, which will give him that big advantage. White even has better development right now, but again, the fact that the queens are off the board and White can't really do anything to stop Magnus from developing, that's a wash also. So right now, if we take a frozen picture in time of this, we see, okay, Caruana has the lead in development. But when you look at the game from a dynamics perspective, after b6, for instance, b6 and say bishop b7, and then rook ac8, it's like, where's the lead in development? So that's like an illusion. Okay, let's keep going and see what happens. So b6, bishop takes f6. So there goes White's other bishop. And again, this is about keeping these squares weak right here. Of course, after bishop takes f6, knight e4 with the nice blockade here. Okay, black is still good here though. After king g7. It's just harder though because these pawns are securely blockaded by the best blockader in the game, which is the knight. So Carlsen takes right here. Okay, so now we have this bishop versus knight scenario. There's 3 pawns in the center of the board. And now, of course, Magnus Carlsen gets right to work. Bishop b7. Notice how natural all the moves are. Right? A little kid, right, could have played these moves. A beginning chess player could have played these moves. f6. King f8. I like king f7 better because then this rook can swing over to g8 here, right, with this added pressure against this square. Okay, but I can't knock Magnus. He had a different idea in mind. King f8, rook e1. Again, pawns have to be blocked, defended, and there's the blockade. There goes the blockade. And now the question is, can Caruana stop these pawns? And the answer really is in the long term, no. This explains the move g4. Caruana cannot hold. It's like a dam that's weak. Okay, the levees are starting to break. So Caruana can't hold it forever. So he realizes, hey, I got to get something going myself. So he wants to start creating a threat of a pass pawn himself. So here comes the pawns. f7. Notice how if the king was already on f7, that check wouldn't be possible. And here's the counterplay. And now, just looking at it here, it looks clearly winning for black. He pushes. Another idea is rook d7. And for example, king e2, then of course d3, check. It's very difficult to stop that pawn. King e1, same idea, d3. And at this point, you can even give up the rook and just go into a pure king and pawn ending. So Magnus did the natural move, c2, forcing the rook to be passive on c1. Why not? d3, this forces the king to become passive. And this looks fantastic because it looks like simply that Carlsen will now just clean up. And after cleaning up, march his king over here and free this rook. The rook will come here, check, and the game will be over. However, Caruana finds beautiful resource. It's almost like a study, and he's able to draw. Carlsen tries to look for the win, but at this point, it's just drawn. And so the game ended in the draw. Exciting game. Um, again, to me, as far as I'm concerned, Magnus said, just sent a little message like, hey, like, you're gonna have to raise your game high, higher to take the title. Because although Caruana was able to draw, it was Magnus who had the pressure, and Magnus might have even at some point let the wind slip through his fingers. And again, this matchup reminds me of the Carlsen Caruana. I'm sorry, the Carlsen Karyakin matchup, whereby Magnus, if you look at that match in 2016, yes, it was a close match, and even Karyakin was up one game right at one point. However, if you look at that whole match, it was that basically Carlsen was putting the pressure on every single game, and that's why they were calling Karyak the minister of defense and all this stuff, because basically he was getting it handed to him every game, but then he's finding these miraculous draws. Okay, props to him. However, the alpha male on the chessboard was Magnus Carlsen for that um, whole match. And even when Magnus fell down a game, right, was down 1-0, it still didn't feel like Magnus was going to lose the title, because he had been putting pressure on him the whole time. And the game he did lose was from a result of over pressing. And then of course we already know that how the story went. Magnus tied it up. Of course, I think it was game 10, and then he went on in the tie breaks and beat Karyakin. This game reminded me of that entire match, whereby Carlsen basically did what he wanted to do. He played a King's Indian, like something that he doesn't even play that much. So he basically was like, okay, I'm gonna play whatever. He gets a reasonable position, then begins to outplay the opponent. Right, gets in the middle games, and then just takes step by step by step, improving his position. Next thing you know, he's winning. Just happened to be in this case, he wasn't able to slam the door on Caruana, as he missed many opportunities with Karyakin. However, again, the alpha male today was Magnus Carlsen. So with that, I will end this video, and I hope to see you soon on the next video, and we'll discuss the upcoming match a little bit more. I am very excited. Please like and subscribe, comment, and also please check out my links below. See you guys soon.